In the winter of 1847, something arrived in the remote mountain town of Millbrook, Vermont, that would rewrite the town's history in blood and ice. They called him Samuel Hawthorne, a name that appears in no census, no ledger, no record of any kind before that night. He emerged from a blizzard that had already claimed 17 lives, a walking phantom against the white fury of the storm. This man, who spoke of distant lands beyond the mountains and demonstrated medical knowledge that saved dozens during a deadly outbreak of winter fever, was not what he appeared to be. What the townspeople discovered about him would shatter their understanding of human nature, revealing a truth about survival so dark that the Millbrook Historical Society has kept the documents locked away for over 170 years. This isn't just a story of survival gone wrong, it's a testament to how far a human being can fall when civilization strips away, and how monsters can wear the mask of saviors. If you're ready to uncover secrets that were meant to stay buried, hit subscribe. This story doesn't just dig into history. It unearths what was never meant to be found. Millbrook, Vermont, 1847. A forgotten scratch in the mountains. Population 300 souls clinging to existence. The winter of 46 to 47 was a razor's edge of cold. Dr. Ezekiel Putnam, a man running from his past in Boston, recorded in his journal that whiskey froze solid in bottles. The Connecticut River became a 4-foot-thick sheet of ice. The town's heart was Main Street, Jeremiah Prescott's general store, the social ledger of the town. The Millbrook Inn run by the widow Abigail Foresk, where warmth and gossip were traded, and the white church of Reverend Isaiah Greenfield, where faith was slowly freezing solid under the relentless cold. They had already lost 5 people. The community was starving, isolated, desperate. Hope was a currency they had long since spent. On February 18, 1847, young Timothy Prescott saw it first. A figure moving against a blizzard that should have killed any man. He didn't stumble, he didn't wander. He walked with purpose, a map in his mind only he could see. The man who arrived at death's door was wrong. His clothes were made of treated animal hide, unlike anything they'd ever seen, thick, armor-like, repelling snow. His boots left deep, geometric tracks in the snow, studded with metal. Most unsettling of all was his condition. He showed no signs of frostbite, no disorientation. His speech was clear, his movements fluid, as if he'd just stepped out of a cozy cabin, not a killing storm. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair streaked with premature white. But it was his eyes pale blue, almost colorless, like ice over deep water. They didn't just look at you, they measured you. He gave his name, Samuel Hawthorne. From his mysterious, weather-resistant satchel, he produced miracles. When young Sarah Thornberry was coughing herself raw, on the brink of what Dr. Putnam feared was consumption, Hawthorne listened for a moment and diagnosed a respiratory infection from poor ventilation. He produced a vial of dark liquid that smelled of pine and something sweet, unidentifiable. 3 drops in water. Within an hour, her coughing subsided. By morning, she was breathing easy. Word spread like wildfire. The line outside the inn stretched down the street. His methods were unlike anything Putnam had learned at Harvard. Hawthorne could find medicinal plants under feet of snow. His treatments worked with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. He prepared a concoction for Sarah Thornberry that involved boiling strange roots with preserved meat, a process that filled the air with a sweet, sickly odor that reminded some of something buried too long. It worked. She recovered in 3 days. But the price was nightmares. Vivid, terrible dreams of walking through endless white landscapes. Shadowy figures offering warmth and food if she would only join their sacred feast. His knowledge was a paradox. He spoke of his people and the old ways, but his vocabulary was precise, educated. His accent was a puzzle, hints of British, German, Scandinavian, yet belonging to none. He was a walking contradiction, and Dr. Putnam's scientific mind, initially impressed, began to curdle into suspicion. The breaking point came from 2 directions. Young Timothy Prescott, the boy who first saw him, found a hidden cache in the woods. It wasn't an animal den. It was a repository. Inside, wrapped in the same strange leather, were clothesmen's shirts, women's dresses, children's coats, all bearing dark stains, some cut away from their owners. Personal items, wedding rings, lockets, toys, trophies, but the true horror was in the journals and sketches, anatomical drawings. Some of game animals, others unmistakably, of human forms, not for study, for butchery. Notation on optimal cutting points for maximum yield, techniques, For preservation in winter conditions. This was a manual. A guide. Jeremiah Prescott, Timothy's father, saw the journal entries dating back 3 years. They described expeditions and encounters with traveling parties. It detailed a systematic process. Approach vulnerable victims under the guise of help, isolate them, and then process them. The journal described the author's growing expertise in the field preservation of resources. Human resources. One entry detailed an encounter with a family of 5. The clinical description of how each was killed and processed was not the work of a madman. It was the work of a practitioner, a professional. Simultaneously, Dr. Putnam made his own discovery. Analyzing Hawthorne's medicines under his microscope, he found human hair, bone fragments. Confronted, Hawthorne didn't deny it. He seemed pleased. "Ah, doctor," he said, his pale eyes gleaming. "You are correct. The most effective medicines incorporate elements from the ultimate source of life. Human beings themselves." He explained it wasn't murder. It was efficiency. A sacred tradition. "In my homeland," he said, "we learned that the human body contains all the elements necessary to heal another. It creates a bond. A communion deeper than your Christian sacraments." Putnam understood. The miraculous recoveries, the behavioral changes, the cravings for meat, the nightmares. It was all systematic conditioning. Hawthorne wasn't just feeding them human flesh. He was breaking them down and rebuilding them into something new. Something that accepted the ultimate taboo. The confrontation happened in the Thornberry barn. Thomas Thornberry found Hawthorne by candlelight, his surgical tools gleaming, working on a large piece of meat on the workbench. The bone structure was unmistakably human. Organs sat in containers, carefully labeled. Hawthorne didn't startle. He smiled. "Perfect timing, Thomas. I was hoping you would learn these techniques. Your children are progressing so well." He gestured to the remains. "This came from the traveler last week, already dying from exposure. Rather than let such valuable resources go to waste, the medicine I made for your daughter Mary included portions of this. That's why her recovery was so complete." Thomas was frozen. Hawthorne was feeding his family human beings. "I'm feeding your family the most nutritious sustenance available," Hawthorne corrected, his tone evangelical. "Those who share in the sacred feast become part of an eternal community." Armed with evidence, Putnam Prescott, Reverend Greenfield, and others marched on the Thornberry house. They found a nightmare. The family and other converts sat in a circle around a makeshift altar, the dining table, now stained dark. On it lay the dismembered remains of a human being, arranged with clinical precision. They all had the same vacant, predatory look. Hawthorne looked up, calm. "Ah, doctor, we were just conducting young Mary's final initiation. True understanding requires participation." Reverend Greenfield found his voice. "This is cannibalism, murder. You've made monsters of them." Hawthorne laughed, not with madness, but with genuine amusement at their ignorance. "Monsters, look at them. They are healthier than they've been all winter. Their children are strong. I've given them the tools to survive anything. I've freed them from your abstract morals." The converts attacked with savage, practiced coordination. It was not a fight, it was a slaughter. Thomas Thornberry moved with inhuman speed. His own children, small and ferocious, became lethal. Dr. Putnam barely escaped to raise the alarm. The others were dragged into the nightmare. The siege of the Thornberry house lasted 3 days. The town fought its own neighbors, its own families, who now fought with the tactical precision of trained soldiers. They were outmatched, not by strength, but by ideology. How do you kill someone you love, even when they're trying to eat you? On the 3rd morning, it was over. The house was empty. Hawthorne and his most devoted followers were gone, vanished into the mountains with supplies, weapons, and their preserved resources. Of the 43 people under his influence, only 12 ever returned. Hollow-eyed, silent, they left town within a year, unable to bear the memories or the suspicion. Spring thaw revealed the full horror. Caches throughout the mountains, preserved human remains, personal effects from dozens of missing persons over years. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was an operation. A network of supply depots for butchering and preservation. Journals documented not just what he did, but why. This was an experiment, post-civilizational survival protocols. His goal was to create self-sustaining communities that could weather societal collapse by abandoning all moral constraints. Millbrook was just one test site. The journals listed other vulnerable communities, other strategies for infiltration and conversion. He was a field operative for a larger, shadowy organization he called the Council. Samuel Hawthorne was never found. But the pattern didn't end. In 1851, reports came from northern Maine of a helpful stranger with pale eyes and medical knowledge during a harsh winter. Again, in 1854, in New Hampshire. The last sighting was in 1859 in a Michigan mining camp. He helped them survive a brutal winter. When spring came, he vanished, taking 12 miners with him. They were never seen again. Dr. Putnam's final journal entry before his death in 1863 contained a warning. The man we knew as Samuel Hawthorne understood something about human nature that civilized people ignore. He didn't create monsters. He revealed the monsters that already existed within, waiting for permission to emerge. This mystery shows us that the greatest horrors aren't supernatural. They are psychological. They are the systematic exploitation of our deepest instincts for survival by those who know how to manipulate them. The story of Samuel Hawthorne is a warning. Civilization is a thin veneer. The line between healer and destroyer, between teacher and corrupter, can vanish entirely when survival becomes the only virtue. This channel exists to find these stories, buried by history, and bring them to light. Because some truths are too dangerous to stay forgotten. What do you think? Was Hawthorne a lone monster, or was he part of something far larger, a network that might still exist in the remote places of this country? Let me know your theories in the comments. If you have the stomach for more stories that uncover the dark truths hidden beneath American history, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this with someone who isn't afraid to ask how far they would go to survive. We see you in the next video, where we descend into another chapter that was never meant to be read.